Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on HTML for Sitecore. We're glad that you're able to join us. I'm Emily Blackmore, and I'll be producing today's webinar. For those of you who haven't used GoToTraining before, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a GoToTraining panel, and you should see an orange button. You can expand or collapse that panel by selecting the button if it's covering up too much of your screen. If you do have the panel open, you'll notice a materials section. We've included 3 links for you. The first one is basic HTML commands. The second one is a little handout on lynda.com and some information about that. And the last one we've got there is Sitecore wiki documentation. So the wiki site includes a lot of training materials and quick reference guides. At the bottom of the panel there, you'll notice a chat session. So if you could, just go ahead and type in the chat there just so we can make sure everything's working all right. If you'll type in what department you're from. All right. Interested in seeing who's here? All right, we've got somebody from the Provost Office, OIT, HR, Ethics Center, SMU and Taos, Institutional Research, LEC. Hello to everyone. Wellness, History. We've got a great group here today. That's exciting. All right, so in the chat box, we'll use the chat box for question at the end of today's webinar. We are recording this session for future use, and for purposes of the recording, we would like to hold all questions to the end. From time to time, Ian may ask you for input, so if he does, we'll be using the chat area to respond to him. Ian won't be watching the chat area for questions during the session, but I will be online to help answer where possible and present questions to Ian at the end. So let's get started. I'm excited about today's session on Sitecore with Ian Aberly. He is the manager of the SMU STAR program in multimedia and web development. They assist with technology-related projects for faculty and staff. So before I turn it over to Ian, I'm going to launch a quick poll so we can gauge your familiarity with Sitecore. So here we go. If you'll just answer real quickly how familiar you are with Sitecore. So we've got never used it a few times, and use it frequently. Oh, you all are quick. We're almost there. I'll give it a couple more seconds. All right, that's great. So we've got, it's pretty evenly split across the board, never used it, a few times and frequently. So that's excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ian so he can get us started for today.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank you all for attending another session on Sitecore. My name is Ian Aberly, and I'm the manager of multimedia and web development for academic technology. And I am going to be helping you all today with adding a little pizzazz to your Sitecore pages by digging into the HTML part. I know a lot of you are from different disciplines across campus, and that's great. But one thing we all share right now is this universal tool for creating our sites and web presence. And it's a very important tool. More students now are getting their information from the web more than the flyers you hand out and the brochures you send away. They're going to come to your website and come and look at your site and get for some of them, their very first impression of SMU. And so we want to make a good impression. And so Marketing Public Affairs has put together this really nice tool to allow us to create sites that have a consistent look and feel throughout the university. And we're going to dive into how to, I guess, jazz them up a little bit from just the standard templates that they give you by playing around a little bit with the HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and just so you know where we are and what we'll be doing, let me go ahead and show you an example. So this is a pretty standard site here, just basically off the template. Here we have a banner image, we have our heading here, this is our page title, and then we have just some intro text, a little more text, information about a deadline here. Then there's this nice little block quote. Nice list, another apply now button that we probably can highlight a little bit better. And then we have down here a table, and then some more text to follow up. And then over here in our sidebar, we have the navigation. And one of my favorite features of Sitecore is it automatically builds out this navigation for you. So it used to be, for those who've been here a while, we used to have the 2A and 2B uh, ASP pages that we had to edit to create those navigation links, or if we had to do it in Dreamweaver or front page, we'd have to create those all by hand. And then if we renamed our page or changed the page title in any way, we'd have to go through and redo all those links and everything. So for us, this is always created, and so it really is a great feature and really helps speed up the time that it takes you to create these pages. But under that, we've added through an HTML widget, we've added some information about classes here, and there's one with a webinar recording that you can watch here, and this one here. Well, hey, look, it's HTML basics for Sitecore. That's what we're here doing now. So I can actually click here and register if I wanted to, but this is the information about what we're going to be covering today. So have a look if you haven't already. So we're going to be covering a little bit about basic HTML formatting, cleaning up some of Sitecore's HTML, and the basics of CSS tags in Sitecore. So we're going to look at some of that, and then so we're going to take just this pretty standard site. We're not doing anything really fancy with Sitecore here. We're just using the out of the box plain Jane Sitecore thing. And so by tweaking some of the classes in HTML, we can change it up a little bit. And so we have now some lead text here. We've changed our notice about enrollment here. We've fancied up this block quote. We've created buttons for our webinars, a button for apply now. We now have a table with a nice little highlight for when you roll over the table rows, and then some more text down here at the bottom. So we're going to go through here now. This page has been mocked up to basically show you all the features, or not all, sorry, but many of the features and things that you can do in Sitecore. Just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. So there's a lot of things here, and in fact, there's actually too much stuff going on here. So, but we'll talk a little bit about how to add these features in and update our site. Now, before we began, we did send out a email to remind everybody about this class, and a nice little video for HTML basics. It's a very useful thing. It talks about a lot of the basic tags and styles to get you going. But at this point, just so I can kind of get an idea about where we stand in knowing what HTML is and CSS, I have a little poll here that I'd like you to let me know whether you're very familiar with HTML, you know how to edit HTML, you know a lot of the basic tags, somewhat familiar, so you can kind of get in there and kind of tweak some things if you need to, or if you've beginner, you really don't even know what HTML is, put that. So if you would go ahead and take that poll real quick, we can see where everybody stands. Okay, awesome. So, all right. So, if you're, it looks like half the class is beginner or rarely use HTML. If you haven't watched that video, it's a free video on lynda.com. I highly recommend taking it. You'll find it in our materials section, a link directly to it, in that email you got. Sorry, there will be a link to that. Reminding you for the class, but I think it was literally 10 minutes, and it's a great introduction. So if you start to get lost, that will be a great resource to look at after the class. And the nice thing is we are recording this, so you can always come back to this again and review. For those who are very familiar, you'll have an easy time with this, and somewhat familiar, you should be able to keep along quite easily. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and log into Sitecore. And of course, to log into Sitecore, you go to the stage, which is wcmstage.smu.edu. And then if you just type in /Sitecore, that would get you into the window. But I'm going to go ahead and log in. Now, this is not a you might find it better just to kind of follow along and watch the screen instead of trying to do it at the same time. So let's log in. Great. Now the interface you're seeing here will be a little bit different than what you see when you log in, just because I'm an admin, and so I have a few extra buttons and stuff here. But once you log in, what you will see is the content editor. Oh, it's still loading. And give that a second. There we go. It takes a little longer. I have all this stuff that has to load, but you should have something that looks pretty much like this when you log in. So over on the sidebar here, we have our directories, and all of our pages are all right here. And then we have our window for editing and our navigation up at the top. If you're not familiar with all these areas, I highly recommend going and checking our last webinar on Sitecore. You'll find that on our training page. There'll be a link to it from there. Okay, so I've bookmarked the section I'm going to work in. So let me jump there. And under here, okay. So these are the pages we're going to be playing with today. So let's look at this page here, and I'm just going to go ahead and lock and edit it so I can make some changes. And I'll click the show editor. Expand that out a little bit. Now, if I look at the HTML, let's just take a look at this. One of the nice things about all web pages is this structure behind it, this HTML structure, which is the language, the markup language that's going to be used for your web pages. And it's pretty simple language here. So right here, this P area here, this basically says this is a paragraph. And it's going to mark off that area. The little P starts it off. Then the closing P tag here says that's the end of the paragraph. And then I have my image here. And then I have some headings, a BR, which is a break, and basically says take a break and put some space here. And then there's that block quote. Let me go ahead and pull open the other window so we can see at the same time what we're looking at. So this H5 here, that heading, that's what's producing this here. Then there's the next paragraph. This is the block quote that we see here. So basically anything within this area is going to be part of that block quote. Then we have our next heading right here, this little heading 2. And then here's our list. So we have, in this case, an unordered list, which means we're going to get these little bullet items. If we wanted an ordered list, it would be an OL for an ordered list. And then we have each one of these items that's going to be a bullet is one of these list items. And there's the start of that list item, the close of that list item. So for those who are, since half the class is not very familiar with HTML, this is kind of how that, not kind of how, this is how that page is made up. Then we have our link here for this apply now button. There's a horizontal rule here, which is what's producing this little line right here to break out these two sections. Then we have another heading, and then this is the code for all of our table. All right here. So we have table rows, and then each one of these areas, this is a table cell, or in this case, TD, which is table data. And there's another table data here. And if I kind of move my mouse over, you can see the break right here where between these two areas, and that is the break between this table data and that table data. And then we have very last, our last heading here, and then 2 more paragraphs. So that's the code here. The nice thing about this is if I opened up my Mozilla browser from 1996 and viewed this web page, I could see this web page. I would be able to see this information. If I pull this up on my phone will be able to read this information. Now, what gives it all this really nice, pretty look is the style sheets that are used behind it. And that's what gives the page its flair and the look. So the style sheets are what's going to say, hey, for a heading 1, it's going to be red, it's going to be this big, and the letters are going to be spaced this far apart. The paragraph's going to be using this font and it's going to be this big. So that's all specified by the style sheets running in the background. And marketing's come up with each one of our schools have our own unique style sheets. So this is the general SMU one. If we looked at Meadows, Meadows has a different look and feel, but the content and the framework underneath is exactly the same. It's all running on this basic HTML area here. So I can actually take this page and I can easily reskin it to look like a Meadows page, or reskin it to look like a generic SMU page, or reskin it to look like a Deadman page with very little effort. And that's all done with the style sheets. And we're going to be playing with that today. We're going to actually add some classes and some formatting from those CSS styles to enhance this page to look more like this here. Okay. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody yet. If you're still live, just go ahead and just say I'm still here on the chat. If you're totally lost, go ahead and just type in I'm lost. So we'll just kind of know where we're there. Okay. People are still here. That's great. All right. So a few people still a little lost. I'm sorry that you're lost. Hopefully we'll pull you back in and find you again. All right. So let's go ahead and spread this page back out a bit. And go ahead and close this window. All right. Okay, so if I go ahead and preview this window, here's my page. And I'm going to add a class to some of these paragraphs and some of these areas. And what will happen is that class will basically call one of those style sheets and say, hey, I want to look like this. And just by adding that little bit of CSS, we're going to make these stand out a little bit better. So for this first part, this introduction, this is our lead into our whole page here and section. So I'm going to actually make that a lead. Actually, you know what? Before we go too far, let me show you one. Let's spend a little more time actually on that HTML, because there are some people who are lost, and right now we're dealing with a lot of people who are migrating pages over from their previous sites to their new sites, and I just want to make sure that we can all be familiar with the basics of HTML. Scroll down to the content editor here, and so I show the editor, key off that, hey, there's a lot of misspelled words. We're going to ignore that, but I'm just going to look at the HTML here. And as I can see, there are a lot of these weird styles and indents and stuff. And this must be that list. Yeah, see, there's a symbol, font, and that's the code for a dot. And so that list is actually not a real list. It's been put in as a list. And there's a couple of these little tags here. This MSO, which leads me in this MSO um, normal, this, and most of all this here, that shows me that this page was created originally in Word and then pasted in, and it's brought over all this Word formatting, which is going to muddy things up, as you can see, when we're looking at our page. So here's our page here as is. I'm going to leave this here. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and start by cleaning this up. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all the text here. I just did a Command A. It would be a Control A on Windows to select that, and then a Command C or a Control C on Windows to copy that text. And I'm going to go right into Dreamweaver, which luckily I already have that pasted launched. So if I go ahead and hit Create HTML Page, it's going to give me a nice little generic HTML page. And if I happen to hit the split, I can see the code part here and the WYSIWYG view here. And this is going to allow me quickly and easily to kind of clean up this code so that not only will it perform and look nicer in Sitecore, but it will actually work better too. So I'm just going to go ahead and select right here and paste in that code. There we go. And if I click over here now, you'll see there's my table, there's my text. It's going to not see the image, and that's fine because we're not in Sitecore right this second. Dreamweaver has a nice little function built into it to clean up the HTML for the site. So what it'll do is get rid of a lot of these word classes and stuff and strip this all back down to just being pure, easy to use HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and say clean up Word HTML. I'm going to choose which version of which version of Word, and in this case 2000 or newer. I'm just going to say go ahead and clean up all the font tags, clean up invalid nested tags, just do it all and click OK. And what it'll do is remove 20 instances of XML, 10 words, ifs removed, empty paragraphs removed. Great. All right. So did a good job of cleaning a lot of that up. It's still, this class is here. These are a class is a valid tag, so it's not going to clean those up. So I'm going to actually manually clean those up. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this here. And then I'm going to do Command F, Control F on Windows, and I'm just going to do a simple find and replace to just clean that stuff right out. So I'm going to just replace it with nothing, say replace all, boom, those are gone. So now same thing here. I think this is the only word selection, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete. Actually, I can just get rid of that div tag altogether. Get rid of that. And I hate when it does that, when the forest line breaks there. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one here. Just again, find and replace all. One more time. There we go. Great. It's cleaned up a lot of that HTML. Now the list here. Now I can come in and there's two ways I can do it. I can do it manually, which comes over here. I can just kind of delete those out there, get rid of that, and you'll see it'll clean that up. Or if I was going to be really productive, what I'd do is again do a find and replace, and I can actually do it very easily. So this is more of an advanced step. So you can clean it up, just delete those out there. Or if you're more advanced, more familiar with HTML, if I actually come here, I can select this entire span tag and paragraph in between each one of this list items. I'm just going to do a find and replace for those. I'm going to end that list. Put in a shift return and start a new list, make a new list item. And if I hit replace all, it'll automatically put those list item tags in. This one I still need to do, but saved me a little bit of time. Just go ahead and put that list item there, list item there. Now, if I have totally lost you now, go ahead and put that in the chat so I can see where we are in our familiarity with Word and coding in HTML. Lost me. Great. Okay, um, so what I did was just do a find and replace to kind of clean that up, doing it as a big batch to save me a lot of time from going in and manually doing it. But what you'll see over here is I have this nice list. But I can also do it if I undo all those little things I just did. How far did I go? And great. I can also come over here and I can just go ahead and delete these out manually. There we go. And then just select them and make a list there too. So depending on how many items you have, the word coding does slow it down quite a bit. But so there you go. There's two ways to do it. So we just went ahead and kerned what was a fake list with bullet characters and non-breaking spaces to put that little space in between to an actual real list in this case. So these are all, each one of these is a list item that we can now, when we preview this back in our page, will look much better. So I think we did it. I think we've cleaned up all the HTML code here. So I'm just going to head and I'm going to grab this last paragraph tag, come all the way up to the very beginning here, top paragraph tag, copy that. And I will go back to my application, paste this in and accept. And now when I preview this, it's going to ask me if I want to save. And of course, yes, that's what I want to do. So this is our new page. Oop, did I hit preview? Preview. Uh-oh, having a Sitecore slowdown. Give this a second. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and quit out. Oh, I'm going to lose that pretty tab though. Let me take a screenshot of this real quick and then we can compare the two. All right, easy enough. I'm going to quit out of Firefox and launch that and just get right back in. Now, this is where having it as a favorite comes in very handy. Once the interface loads here, I will be able to bring this up. There we go. And I'll just click on, okay, come my favorites here. There it is, MMC. Great. And now when I click my, let's see if my changes made it actually into the HTML here. Oh, nice clean HTML. Look at that. It's just beautiful. Great. Go ahead and accept. And now let's go ahead and preview this. So here we go. Here's our new Queen previewed version. See how much better that those list items show up. Let me bring up that snapshot there. This is the before, and now we have the after. So you can see much cleaner, nicer looking code there. This is great, great. Now we did lose the block quote there, but we can go ahead and fix that. That's an easy fix, and we'll put that in. So there we go. So we've now gone ahead and stripped out a lot of that old code. And so if you were responsible for migrating your pages over from the old server and somebody else had owned it before, you guys might want to just go back and look at your code and see if there's a lot of those MSO style tags. And that's a good clear sign that it was at some point edited in Word or some Office product, and cleaning that stuff out, you'll notice right away that your page will start to look a little bit better. So let's go ahead now. I'm going to go back to the show editor here, and I got my list. This was a block quote, so I'm just going to click in there again and turn that back into a block quote. There we go. And great. So today we're going to be talking about how to, you know, add some interest to our page with some formatting that's all done with CSS and in by editing the HTML. So unfortunately, we can't just kind of pull down on one of these sections up here and say, "Hey, we want this to be a nice little lead. We want it to actually, well, actually, we have to go in and add that code in to make it pop." And so that's why having the basic HTML and understanding basic HTML will really help you get far with this, because we're going to actually end up doing some typing. As I was starting to say before I got distracted there, the HTML area at the very beginning, that first paragraph, that's our lead into our document. And it happens to have a very simple class. We just call it, just type in class lead. And what that will do is when we accept it, you won't see the styles applied here, so you have to save it. And then if I reload my preview, what you can see is it gives in this lead paragraph, this nice look. And this is basically how people are going to be introduced to your site. So it would be the 3 or 4 lines talking about your program or your center, and gives it a nice look when they land in the page. Now, in our last session, some people were asking about, hey, can I change the font colors, and can I, can we make it blink, and some other things? And so these styles are going to be a good replacement for that. So I want to go trying to change all the colors or anything like that, but just by adding a few of these styles, we'll be able to enhance our page. Now let's look at this table down here. This one's a pretty easy one too. So I have all these table texts, and so say I have a listing of requirements and then the fees that would be associated with those. So if you were a way program or have some um, other fees associated with your class or center, you can actually list them here, dates and times, whatever you want. But as it's listed, kind of gets blurred together. So what we can use is another very simple one on that table. Let's find that down here at the bottom. And that one, again, is a very simple class table. Now, you might be trying to scramble to kind of write down all these and remember these. Again, we're recording this, so you'll be able to review this later. But also, there's documentation up on our wiki that covers some of these so that you can find them later. So here we go. So now we have our table here with this very nice roller for these different areas. Makes it very easy to see and navigate sections. So if I was going to actually look at a um, another section, so you can actually, if you have multiple columns and information, such as this page where we have table headings, and then in this case the name of the webinar, the instructor, and the recording date, it just kind of nicely breaks it up. And then the other big thing is it's very responsive. So as I shrink this page down, you'll see that the table will resize nicely depending on what size device I am. So if I'm, viewing on my desktop, it's like this. If I'm on my tablet, it's going to look like this. And if I'm on my phone, it'll look like this. And it's still very nice and easy to read. Whereas if we look at this one, let me go ahead and take back off that table tag. Reload this page. So you can see most of the page is very responsive. But in this one, well, it's a terrible example actually, because there's not a lot of information there. But if you happen to have if you've been doing HTML a while, you know you would put in a fixed width or something like that for each one of the cells. So, oh, this one is 20 pixels wide and this one's 30 pixels wide. And so when you now try to make it responsive to fit on a tablet or a phone, it'll kind of get squished. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's jazz this page up. So let's go back to our editor here and click in the HTML section. I'm going to go ahead and add back that class. All right. So let's see what else we want to do. So we got the table there. Oh, let's make this apply now button. All right. So if we wanted to make this a button, I'm going to just give that one a class of button, and it just happens to be BTN. And I'm going to go ahead and accept, save, and reload my preview. And we see we have a nice little button. Now, the gray button, I think that there's a gray button and there's a blue button. And as in my example here, I have, this is the gray button. Of course, this is the blue button. To me, I have, in this case, the recording or the previous event is the gray button. So you still can click it and view it. And then, but the one I actually want somebody to act on right now, in this case, the register, I have it blue. So to me, this is more of a call to action, and this is still, you can click it and get to it. So for that, in that case, what I want to do is just add a little bit more of a style to that button. And in this case, I'm going to call it the primary button, or in this case, BTN primary. And what that will do is when I save it, it'll now be a nice blue button. Again, I know it's going to be hard for you all to remember what all these tags are, but I kind of want to get you to see some of the things that we can do with this code and kind of more of a proof of concept and give you some ideas to spark off. But the information's in the wiki to go back and refer, and then of course we'll have the recording that you can actually take a look at too. Now let's talk about this deadline here. Deadline to me says important. It's a deadline, so I want to make that stand out. And so in this case, the deadline for enrollment is August 1st. What I want to do is what I can do is give it a class of an alert. But what you'll notice is that, okay, it does highlight that. It gives it a nice little highlight. It says, oh, hey, look at this. But in this case, I really want it to be a little more emphasis, something like this. In case you have something like a notice, deadlines, basically anything that's going to stop them from taking advantage of whatever you're offering, that you must be 18 or older to attend this trip or something like that. You want to put that and make it stand out. So this one, it's going to be a little more complicated. So I'm going to go back to this alert here. I'm going to go ahead and put some spaces around this so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. So in this case, what I want to do is I'm just going to make it a little, its own little box. I'm going to make it a div actually. And the divs are basically a little called out area. So it's this little self-contained container that you can move around and give control over. Most of the layout with the entire site is done with div tags. So I'm going to change this to a div, and I'm going to say class alert, and that's fine. But I want to go ahead and, in this case, I'm going to say that this is for alert information or alert info. Helps us spell it right, otherwise it won't work. And I can then apply a style. Now, styles act on that individual instance. When I put a style here, it's saying in this particular case, do this. The class will apply, and I can use it over and over throughout the entire site. So I can have multiple alerts throughout the site. But the style is saying in this one instance, let's go ahead and have a width of only, say, 300 pixels. Great. And then what I want to do is I'm going to say, you know what, let's make this, I'm going to say, hey, let's make this all a little small. And in this case, I'm going to put in notice, or let's do this, please. Nope. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it that to end here. Great. So I'm going to accept that. I'm going to save it and reload my preview. Okay, a little bit better. So I have that little blue box, says please note, but now I want the please note, I want this to stand out a little bit better. So in that case, what I want to do is just say a span, I just want to span this area. I want to have this point to this point be highlighting that red. And so what I'm going to do is put a little span class, and that just basically says between this point and that point, apply this. So in this case, I'm doing a class label, and let's say that it's important. Back up. And I'm going to say we can stop making it important right here by closing that span. Accept, save. Great. So now that's going to get people's attention. When they come in, they're going to see that and know right away, oh, hey, look, I need to stop here and read that. Great. Now, what I did on this one over here is to make that little block quote. As you can see right here, this is the default style for the block quote. It just adds this little bar here. But by telling it that the block quote to have a, and this is where my block quote ends. This is where, again, by just saying, hey, that is a alert, I automatically gave it that yellow that we saw earlier in our alert that we just did. So I hit save, reload that. And should load in just a second. There we go. So that makes it stand out even more. So there's just some of the styles there that you can see to kind of add some emphasis to your areas. Oh, one last thing. Let's go ahead and by default, our banner images come over from our parent page. So on MMC, this banner is here. But if I wanted to change it up so that when I'm on this section, it has a different banner, I can easily do that using there we go. Scrolled over it there. Sorry. The header image. So I'm just going to browse for my header image. The nice thing is there's this, with the new upgrade on Sitecore, we can now actually, if we know where it is, we can just go to it. But I can also just go ahead and type in the name of the file if I know it. In this case, I did. Click that, and I say select media and save, and I now have this new banner image here. Great. Okay, so there we go. So we've jazzed up the page, got a new banner image, got our lead text. We've added in an alert for showing off deadlines. We've added a few buttons into our page. The one other thing I want to show you as we start to wrap up here is just how to work with some of the text on your page. So in this case, I have my page here. I have the lead then, and then I have these groups of text. This is a pretty small group, but I know some people have FAQs and stuff that actually go on for quite a bit of space on their pages. So it would be not just scrolling down once or twice, it would be, 3 or 4 times I'm scrolling down. And we've added 2 new ways for you to represent that information. One is the tabs. And in this case, we can consolidate what might have been on 3 or 4 pages into one page. So I have my lead here, and then I have my different tabs. Well, let's go ahead and view on our preview page here. So I have my different tabs here. And so if I happen to have information on one page that was for freshmen and one was for returning students and one was for graduating seniors, and it was just a small bit of information on each one of those pages, I can now consolidate that information into one page by using the tabs here. And so this would be my incoming freshmen. This would be for returning students, and this would be seniors. And I can give that same information here. Another way of doing it is with the accordions. And so this is a very helpful way for presenting FAQs or breaking up sections like, okay, for this school, do this, and that school, do that. And so I can break it up into different categories. And the nice thing is it just kind of collapses. By default, the first tab is going to be open. That's just the way it works, just so you know that it's a tab. But once you click it, the first one will collapse and so on. So again, I can have information for first year students, second year students. And those are all contained in our widgets. So for the accordion, you would use the accordion widget. And you would find that if you don't have a widgets folder, you can just right click and say insert widgets folder. And then when you click on that folder, you'll see there's ones for tabs and there's ones for the accordion. And in this case, all you do is have this accordion, and you can fill in this information, and then we'll just attach it to our page. Same thing for the tabs. It's broken up into each one of these tabs, tab 1, tab 2, and tab 3. And you would just edit it just like the body content in any other page. Okay. So there's a couple of things there. So this is our ending page. So we have some time here for, I know I went a little fast, but we have some time here for some questions. I'd be happy to answer any kind of questions. And again, remind you that we've recorded this session, and we also have our wiki that you can refer to later, which will have more information about these and some other features. But if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type that into the chat window now. A bit more about the various widgets available to us. Well, as you can see, Beth, we have here in our widgets, the HTML block allows you to put in raw HTML code. So in that case, that has allowed me to put in this HTML in our sidebar area here. And what you'll notice too is it's the same thing that allows us to put in this YouTube video in our page here. This is using an HTML block and using the iframe embed code from YouTube. So if you've ever been on YouTube, what you'll notice is there, oh, let's not do that. There's under the share, there's the embed section. And so that gives you the raw code to paste into your page. The tabs we looked at, the marquee is for a slideshow that will have, that we can see at smu.edu/, I think it's 100. So does this kind of slideshow at the top. And tab 6, so the default tab I think is 4 and tab is 6 count, and then there's a tab for 8 count tab, so those just increase those. Is there a limit to number of tabs or users? There we go, David. Yes, there is a limit. The tabs are limited to 8. You do want to watch for them, so they will cascade, so that they will flow under one another if you get too many. I would try to refrain from doing that because it does not give a good user experience. But 8, it looks like, is the limit. On the accordions, I think the accordions is now up to, I think you can have 32 items in the accordion. So you can have quite a few FAQ things available there. Any other questions? Oh, and okay, so how to put the accordion on your page? Yeah, so if I am on my page, let me just go ahead and create a new page here. Just call it page. If I preview this page, what you'll see is at the very top there is a little, it takes a second for it to load, sorry. There is a little triangle here, and if we click this triangle, we'll get this drop down, and we can then edit this view. And I'll load it in a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to want to use this component button. This button here is the magic key to adding the widgets on your page. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And I'm just going to say, oh, I want to add it to which area. So if I happen to click add to here, what you'll notice, it will automatically show you what's available there. So there's a news box, an HTML block, and a site navigation. As you can see, a accordion and a tab is not available for that area, because who wants to try to view 6 tabs right there in a little sidebar? So you're restricted to certain areas for certain widgets. So if I click here, though, what you'll see is now I have body content, news box, tabs, and slider. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add the 6 count tabs. Go ahead and select that. And at this point, if I have an existing tab that I want to add, I can do that. Or if I want to just say, hey, you know what, let's create a new tab, call it tab 6 count, and I'm going to put it in my folder here. About us, academic technology, stars, stars, put in there, and click OK. So I can actually start editing my tab right here if I wanted to. I personally prefer not to do that, just because to be honest, find this interface a little frustrating. So what I'll do is go ahead and save it once it's inserted. And then at that point, once it's saved, what you'll notice is we collapse this widgets folder. There should be now a tab 6 count in there that there's my new tab 6 count, which I can then go in and start to edit. If you want to remove things, there's a question about can you remove the sidebar if it's not necessary for that page? Yes, you can remove the sidebar. I think you might want to think twice about doing that because it does allow a navigation system for your users. Not all the users see all the buttons up at the top. But if you did want to hide that or remove that, you can remove that when you're in the, sorry, I'm flying over here. When we're over here and we go to edit, you'll notice that one of the options is we can actually click and remove that sidebar when we get the edit window up. We can delete that out of there. The other thing too is if you are creating a page that you might not want to show up in the sidebar, you can hide that by clicking the checkbox. Sorry, this interface loads a little slow. Um, Come on. Well, while that's loading. So if you wanted to hide the page or the section from the navigation, you can just click this little checkbox and it will hide it from your area. And then if you wanted to hide that page title so it didn't show up right here, this page title right here didn't show up, you can actually turn that off also by clicking here. David was asking, are the classes predefined or you can create one? So classes are predefined by marketing public affairs. They have a secret hidden list of classes, but we're making some of them available for you to find and use and you can find the list on the wiki. But most of them come from the Bootstrap um, CSS library, but not all of them have been implemented. So there are some there that we just can't, that are just not available. Okay. Um, oh, well, so let that just close away. All right. Um, time for a few more questions. Okay, so there's still some confusion on adding the tabs to the page. Um, so when you're on you have your page, and let's click on this page and preview it again. So if I'm on this page and I wanted to add tabs to a particular section, or in this case, the body content is the section that we have the opportunity to add that to. Once this interface loads, I would click the edit button up here, that button, that'd bring me into the edit mode. It'll take a second for it to load. Sorry. And then I say component new, and I just say what component I want to add and where I want it to add to. If I want to get rid of a component, say, this area here, I can remove that one. There's that. And if I want to get rid of this tab here, I can say goodbye to that. Oh, but I did want to add the component, so let's go back to here. So to add that tab back into here, I can click add to here. It'll say, oh, I want to add which tab. In this case, I'm going to add a tab that I already have created. So I'm going to hit tab, content selection, hit select. And this brings up our basic 4 tabs. And in this case, I'm going to select the existing one that I already have built in our widgets folder. And there it is. You can see it's, and what you might notice is the text is nice and black while the others are grayed out. That's because what I have available. It will only let me select the right one. Click OK. And it's now added that tab. So I just hit save. And there we go. Okay. So I go ahead and close that. And now if I preview this page again, what you should notice is the tab should be there. And my sidebar is gone because I deleted it. Now, you won't gain this space from the sidebar because that area is designated for your sidebar information, so you can add more widgets and stuff there. But if you're trying to expand that space, it won't be there. But my tabs are there now from my previous one. Any more questions? We have time for one more short question if there's one. So there's a question about having a landing page that doesn't have the sidebar page. That's just depends on what templates you or pages you have available to you in your look and feel. So if you're trying to create something like this, again, this does have the sidebar and it's just kind of broken up into columns, but making the most of what's there. But if you want something beyond the page and stuff, or beyond what your templates are available, you'll have to talk to marketing and public affairs for them to do some custom page renderings for you. All right, so I think we're about at time. I want to again thank you all for attending. Feel free to email me or contact me if you have any more questions. But I appreciate you all taking time out of your day to listen to me ramble on about HTML and style sheets on Sitecore. I'm going to send this back over to Emily, and thank you again.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. And thank you, Ian, so much for hosting today. And we'll have the recording posted soon. Have a great afternoon.